When our boy wakes up, he's already firmly tied up, and two of his so-called brothers call him a disgrace to their family with absolutely zero mana. Chrono gives them a deadly stare to show that they're already dead for doing this. But those bastards just laugh and put some monster bait right on top of his head. Now our boy is absolutely pissed, and his next look alone is enough to scare the shit out of them and make them run as fast as they can. But before he can break free, a much bigger problem appears. A huge rhino beast, the boss of this forest, and it's really hungry. It lunges forward to eat our boy like a small snack, but Chrono acts fast, and the only thing the rhino gets to taste is the rope. The angry rhino can't just let it slide and tries its best to catch our boy, but he easily dodges every attack. And then it becomes his turn to strike. Meanwhile, the brats who left him in the forest to die return to their family estate. But as soon as they enter, they hear loud footsteps. And the next moment, the door flies into the room and smashes one brat straight into the wall. Everyone is shocked and scared as hell when they realize who it is. It's our boy, returning with a rhino's head. And he's not here to mess around. No one can believe their eyes. They know this boy, Sieg, as a loser with no mana and no powers. So what happened to him? You see, the strongest swordsman, Chrono, now controls his body. He gets his second chance in this body after failing to defeat Gilgran, the Necromancer King, who destroys his village and turns all of Chrono's friends into mindless undead. That bastard doesn't even spare his wife, and just to mock our guy, he stabs her undead body right in front of him. Then Gilgran places a curse on Chrono that blocks his mana forever and throws him to the undead that were once his family. Our guy just can't let this bastard live, and he dies with such a burning hunger for revenge that the Dark God hears his call. The god agrees to return him to the world of mortals just to see how he'll get his revenge, but with one limit. He can use endless and unstoppable mana for only 3 minutes each day. Now back to the present. The others watch in awe and fear, questioning how the hell Sieg has changed so much as radiating mana pulses from his body. Refusing to pay attention to their snarky comments, he just fires back, stating that it's pointless for him to overthink with a single goal to achieve anyway. Donning his powers, he calls Gilgran a bastard and demands to meet him. The other kids are just gobsmacked that Sieg isn't having any filter insulting the family head right now. One person quickly comes up to confront Sieg. It's a short-haired girl who wants to play the tough princess. Chrono has absolutely no idea who this woman is, just that she's mumbling in her mouth. She begins insulting her for not getting along with the other brothers and treating them harshly, but our boy still doesn't have any idea what the hell is going on. She apologizes on behalf of him to everyone else, assuring that the young master over here gets a scolding properly. Saying so, she grabs his ass and yeets the fudge away with a tactical retreat, leaving them all confused. By nightfall, we enter the next scene, where the young master shares a room with this girl, who is severely frustrated and questions his whole thought process of ridiculously marching in like that. There's the worrisome part of the others trying to hold a grudge against Sieg later on, but Chrono genuinely doesn't care about that and merely calls her annoying. She scolds him for being foul with his words, emphasizing that power is king in this house, and if these guys happen to become his enemies while he doesn't even possess mana, things are going to turn out horrific. In fact, the very thought makes her shudder in fear. Her reaction is intriguing to Chrono, who now knows with full confirmation that Sieg is the only person in the family with an inability to use mana. The girl weeps and clears her face. Since she's her maid, she has taken note of his every action since they were young. She has seen his tough journey, the kind of effort he puts in every day, the sadness of never being able to use magic. Even though the life force of mana is supposed to be a part of every human being, only a fraction of the population can refine it in ways to cast spells or swordsmanship abilities. On the 7th tier scale of mana levels, some of his brothers are already on the 4th layer, while Sieg doesn't even have a shot of starting anything. Life is grim for the poor boy. He's always been despised by the whole of the family. Even the room he's given is insulting. The maid truly finds herself in pain for his sake, caressing the side of his face. This maid's a bit too touchy for our boy, but actually she was pointing at the scar around his neck that Lord Gucha gave to the boy while he was merely 5. There are several scars etched all over the boy's body. The maid remembers every single one of them, all the miseries he faced. With genuine hope and goodwill, she wishes safety for the young master, who is far too conflicted, and decides to play along with her desires. Chrono assures her that he'll be more careful, then he grabs the tea and drinks to his delight, apologizing for worrying her needlessly. This brightens up her mood, but one question bugs her. How in the hell did he manage to destroy the brothers earlier without even using mana? Chrono immediately realizes that she wasn't around when he casted his abilities. The thing is, he doesn't even know how his own powers function, or that he's not even Sieg anymore. Annoyed, she begins to accuse him of using some cheap underhanded tactic. Bro goes with the flow and actually agrees with her. The maid scoffs in worry, terrified that bad things could happen to Sieg after this, but it's nothing he's not already used to. At the same time, nobody in this family is put off by a surprise attack to begin with. Right when Chrono is about to ask about Gilgran, they hear a door knock with one guard expressing the return of his father, ordering for his summoning in the hall. Our boy has absolutely no idea who this father figure is supposed to be. Though he arrives in front of the man's chambers, and eventually faces Gilgran's wrathful presence, who hollers at him for being a worthless son. The ugly reality kicks in. Bro is currently inhabiting the body of his worst enemy's son. Gilgran demands the kid to come closer, while Chrono is still processing his damn shock, refusing to believe that he's the wretched brat of this family. He's pissed off and motivated by the entity's chance to exact revenge. Chrono now has the perfect opportunity to kill the man and achieve his wild desire. At the same time, silence ensues between the two amidst the tension. The reality is, Chrono can't even manifest any mana at will right now, so it would be like facing death without even a weapon. The head of the family emphasizes that he summoned the boy for a reason, having heard the news of how he overwhelmed one of the brothers. First, he wants to hear it from the boy's own mouth if it's true. Coming to his rescue, the maid starts blabbering an apology, begging for mercy on the young master's behalf, only to get silenced immediately. She shivers in fear while Gilgran assures the kid that he has no intentions of punishing the boy, only that he's curious about a manaless child defeating one of the more competent brothers. Chrono glares at his lifelong enemy with extreme distaste, and out of nowhere, his father calls for the summoning of a gorgeous yet terrifying Hydra undead. The man reminds his dear old son that power is the only valuable attribute for this family, and if the boy truly possesses power, he must show it openly. Chrono stares at the beast that is meant to be his challenge, while his maid tries her best to pitch in and try to stop him. The monster is at the 6th layer level, a Calamity-class beast that could easily slaughter the army of a small nation. And this behemoth is going up against a literal child without mana. It's a real hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby type of situation. The undead Hydra releases acidic fumes that cover the whole room, but Chrono wants all the smoke, pun intended, and survives by saving the maid. Sure, he burned part of his arm, but the interesting thing is how this Hydra is at best supposed to be at the 4th level. Somehow his father modified and evolved it further beyond. Defeating it without mana is impossible, but the kind of mana he manifests is completely unknown even to him, or the kind of backlash he'll get from using it. Just like last time, this man does not give a flying fish about what he has to do. He simply grabs a sword and roars a declaration to kill anything in his path to achieve his goals. The undead Hydra hauntingly corners him from every direction. Things are looking shaky with the maid screaming in worry. That's when a single cut obliterates not only one head, but also the rest of the Hydra's body, severing the undead to pieces. The father, Gilgran, is pleasantly spooked by this unique outcome. He watches his boy with great intrigue, while Chrono appears to have manifested a level-toppling layer 7 even. This begs the question how he managed to gain such strength in the first place. Gilgran is genuinely impressed. What bugs our boy is how this necromancer didn't even move from his spot. It's as if even this level is nothing in Gilgran's eyes, making Chrono wonder if he's hiding something up his sleeve. Regardless of the fact, our boy just wants to kick his ass, so he points his blade at Gilgran, deeming him as his next opponent. The gorgeous art style shows Gilgran's reflection etched in Chrono's sword. He commands the will of his blade to strike down his own father, who seems mildly amused at best. The maid pitches in begging for the young master to stop. Any more could lead to his own death. However, Chrono strictly instructs Pell to stay the hell back, because if she dares to get even in his way, he'll dice her to pieces. That ominous threat causes Pell to get knocked into a temporary coma, which is really making me laugh because every time this girl holds a conversation with someone, she falls down for some reason. Anyway, Mini Gilgamesh is staring back at his evil father, who is loving the look in his son's eyes. The fact that he managed to slay an undead Hydra proves that he's in a different league. Just his mana alone caused the maid to faint. It's night and day compared to the siege that Gilgran is aware of, but he's curious what the next move is going to be. Channeling his anger, the Sword Saint declares that he will cut and maul his father right here and now. He lunges forth with an ability activation aimed to go for the king's neck, but right as he connects the hit, his father's gone and dashes right next to him, kneeing Chrono with a heavy-duty kick that knocks him all the way down to the ground. Even with the insane strength he has, Gilgran's might eclipses his own, as he teleports in front of his son moments after, reminding him to stay present. The next hit knocks the living daylights out of Chrono, as he's sent tumbling away into the ground once more. Bro's getting treated like a damn football against Messi or Ronaldo, but he still goes on the offensive, channeling dark red mana to try and cut his father once more. The attack is neutralized by Gilgran at once, who slams the kid down again, defeating him repeatedly in each encounter. It's true that the boy is still weak, but the power difference from before and now is leagues different. Gilgran is genuinely curious how Sieg managed to tap into this latent potential, wondering if this is the result of his own blood acting up. Meanwhile, our boy is currently facing immense pressure, to the point he can't even get up from the ground. It's the same skill Gilgran used back then. His father's mana is outrageously different from all the others, breaking anyone who stands in his way. Though our boy has no idea what Gilgran is hiding, he's certain that death awaits him at the rate he's going. Right now, Bro's Sword Saint instincts are practically screaming inside of him. The thought of dying and losing a second time sounds embarrassing. He couldn't even avenge anyone despite this chance. Gilgran merely condescends the boy, questioning if he's got nothing left to say. He lifts the pressure and enjoys the silence of the boy as a fitting response. While leaving, the head of the family drills the family creed into his head, reminding him that victory is the only justice he'll have. Thanks to the kid slaying the Hydra, he proved his justice, which is the only reason why he's willing to forgive Sieg's earlier misconduct. In fact, Gilgran is even happy to grant a reward, any reward that the boy desires. This whole situation is pathetic for Chrono, who is basically being looked down upon by his nemesis. Memories of his loved ones come crashing in his mind once more, but he fears nothing anymore since he's already died once. Instead of reacting recklessly, this time the Sword Saint intends to do everything he can to plot his revenge, to gather all information about his father. As for the reward, Chrono pleads with his father to show him the undead that he controls, sparking interest in Gilgran with the boy's curious request. The head of the family commands him to follow him, and later that night, they go inside some sort of labyrinth room. One thing that Gilgran is dying to know is why his son is suddenly interested in the undead. Chrono makes it seem like he's out to gain power, just like he felt it in the Hydra earlier. His desire to become strong impresses Gilgran, but suddenly, our boy stops, as if the fatigue is catching up to him, and his body can barely keep up. By the way, he's experiencing the backlash effects of his mana ability, which is genuinely bad news because if he faints now, he'll miss out on everything. For the sake of his wife, for the sake of his family and men, he needs to make sure that he doesn't topple. This reminds him of a sweet sequence as one of his flashbacks as the Great Sword Saint. Even though Bro looked like a Gigachad menace, his sweet wife always managed to swoon him over by showing off her dress. Chrono acted nonchalant, only for her to grab him by the collar and emphasize that he needed to be a better idol for the ones in the Kiltia Empire. She wanted him to look good, so she set up his collar shut, praising him for looking amazing. Just her smile is enough reason for this man to rage on, to refuse the effects of fainting out of sheer fucking will. Sure, Chrono is devastated that he couldn't save his wife against this scumbag, but he's thrilled to kill Gilgran someday too. At last, they finally arrive at the place where his father's kept all his undead monsters. The first reaction is an alarming one for our boy, who can't believe what he's looking at. A sea of blue monsters is practically teeming inside the facility. Chrono doesn't even know what he's looking at. Gilgran then explains that dead creatures possess no emotions nor any will, but every now and then he finds an intriguing undead, and this time he's scored an interesting one. It's a woman that weeps without end, always crying, as if she's longing for someone. And yes, as cruel and gut-wrenching as this sounds, this is actually my guy's own wife. Gilgran shares that she never stopped crying even after losing her life, impressing him with the limits of the human will. To make it worse, the head of the family practically encourages him to come closer and look at her, the same undead who is reaching for Chrono, as if she knows about him. Watching her like this boils our boy's blood. Every fiber of his being is moments away from lashing out and cutting Gilgran by the throat, but he contains all his anger and sorrow for the right moment. He's fully hell-bent on avenging Hannah, but first he needs to uncover the secrets of his father's powers, even if it means crossing a sea of blood. The encounter with not only the labyrinth of the dead but also his own wife is not easy for our boy to just forget. He's in his bed thinking about Hannah's state. Rain pours, but an ever-blazing desire to exact his revenge burns inside of him, promising that he'll kill Gilgran for good. The following day, we have people arriving by his door, greeting the young master, but to her shock, Bro's already up. The maid is embarrassed to have kept him waiting, hoping to brew him hot tea right at once. She does that, but notices how he hasn't even budged from his spot. In a way, her own memory haunts him from the experience back then, though she musters the courage and apologizes to him for her behavior the other day. The good thing is that he's at least awakened all his mana. Peli is the most glad she could have been, but while she's glazing our boy, Chrono is busy deep in thought, figuring out ways to either kill Gilgran or find out the mysteries behind his powers. Despite being lost in thought for the whole night, he can understand that against an opponent of such caliber, surprise attacks won't work. Even with his experience as the Sword Saint, he knows that he's limited in the information he has. The maid thinks that he's actually frustrated at her, and weeps thinking that she's the problem. The girl is out here crying, not knowing that she's not even the source of his problems. Chrono clarifies that he wasn't trying to ignore her, but that he was lost in thought. But this anxious little maid is like the average girlfriend who thinks you hate her just because you responded a little late. Annoyed, he asks Pell if she has any idea or information about Gilgran's mana. She raises the white flag because a maid couldn't know crap about that, but interestingly, she does point out that it's unique in its composition and sucks life in his presence. This backs up Chrono's experience too. Mana is supposed to be this gentle life force, but coming from that man, it almost seems like a direct contradiction to everything mana is supposed to be about, like a life-devouring black hole. So many questions linger around Gilgran's powers, but Peli is worried about tomorrow regarding the trial even before the young master's injuries healed. Confused, our boy inquires about the details of this so-called trial. The maid is astonished that he forgot about the day of the exam where those who reach 10 years of age are supposed to participate. It's Gilgran's family training, but Chrono finds it a waste of time. Pele has to remind him that it's necessary to take part in this trial as part of the family. Failing in partaking means direct exile. Weaklings are never permitted to stay in the house, which continuously bums out our boy. Chrono questions why Gilgran is so damn obsessed with power. Bro is out here more motivated with power than Virgil from Devil May Cry. Then again, that could be related to the secret of his strength too. The kid wonders if he could get closer to Gilgran after passing. The maid confirms this, because he's basically going to join the guard unit upon succeeding. That means he'll be a low-level soldier who can take direct orders from his father, which is reason enough for our boy. In the next scene, we find ourselves in the family training grounds arena. The brothers who got dog-walked are also present here as Chrono walks up to join the others. Seeing their brother Sieg out here is insulting for the others. They can't fathom that a manaless bastard can join the exam like this, when he could have just taken the opportunity to get exiled. They think that he's gotten cocky because of their previous encounter, merely denoting as a fluke. Pell calls out to the young master, urging him to take it easy, even though he constantly reassures her that he'll be fine. Deep down, Bro's a little worried about Sieg's own bodily limitations, but at the same time, exile is a huge problem too. He needs to get closer to Gilgran to uncover the source of his strength. This exam is the perfect opportunity for him to pass the trial and uncover some secrets and carry on with his revenge. While Bro's busy plotting his father's murder, a bunch of punks walk up to the mana-less loser and question what he's doing here. They continue to berate him for being a coward who should have just run away. Lord Zack eggs on him for acting tough in an exam that isn't meant for scrawny brats. Before he could say shit, our boy connects his fist right next to his face, as if to warn him. Zack, on the other hand, is genuinely confused, questioning if this puny attack is supposed to be a punch. Chrono calls him annoying, and without pulling back his fist, applies pressure at the same spot, kind of like a 1-inch Bruce Lee punch. This literally knocks the clown out unconscious, with his body hitting the ground. Bro got knocked out so hard he's practically foaming from the mouth with his ass up for display. Call that a humiliation ritual. Chrono is dying to know if anyone else is willing to mess with him, while the others are confused how he got so good at hand-to-hand combat out of nowhere. Among the commotion between kids comes the teacher to maintain order. This dude has a questionably long mustache, though he orders for all of them to gather around for the start of the exam. The rules are explained among the 23 participants, all of which are eligible to take participation in this trial. The candidates agree in unison. Next thing is pretty simple. The test is supposed to examine the strength of each descendant of the Gilgran bloodline, proving their worth in the family. Based on performance, they may be granted entrance into the guard unit of the family that works directly under the command of Gilgran himself. It's actually an elite unit, instead of a low-level soldier squad assumed earlier. Their job is to protect, assassinate, and eliminate any threats. The eligibility criteria strictly relies on the outcome of the trial, with the testing method being based on a survival-type test against bloodthirsty magic beasts. Only the kids who survive brutal encounters against monsters will advance forth, because each year, candidates lose their lives in the same forest, discarded from the family. Finally, there's one additional rule for this year. Gilgran surprises the candidates with his glorious presence, earning the respect of all of them. While they're kneeling before him, our boy meets eye to eye against his nemesis. The thought of him toying with his undead wife is still pissing him off. Chrono bites down on his anger with the desire to shatter the trial, kneeling before the head of the clan and offering his respect to Gilgran. The scummy father acknowledges his feelings towards him, but sticks to the agenda and explains the additional rule of an undead escort. Apparently, each of them will be assigned an undead to accompany them on this mission. The goal is to protect it with their lives, kind of like a defense training for protecting their lord. I think we can all guess where this is headed. Each candidate is cuffed with an undead monster, but the thing is, Gilgran already cut off their mana supply too. In other words, if they fell during the trial, they will never be resurrected again, which means protecting them is mandatory. Chrono finds himself at distance from his assigned undead, who is luckily not his wife. That annoying honor goes to one of his brothers, who calls her a disgusting undead. At this point, Chrono is seething with rage and can truly understand that Gilgran might be doing this shit on purpose. Bro is the king of rage bait and pisses him off for the love of the game. Anyway, the head of the family is curious about this year's batch proving their strength, while Chrono is dying to crush this trial and killing this man. The first trial is one of survival. The candidates are sent off to show what they could do, while they're happy to please their father in this mission. Chrono is dying to get closer and closer to Gilgran. It's the only path he has. It doesn't matter what kind of exam he sends in his way. As the Sword Saint, he only cares about avenging Hannah's death. During one of his talks with Pele earlier, she told him that a house is defined by its strength. Training for this family begins upon birth. Kids are told to hunt animals and beasts, eventually humans. Some even abandon their own siblings. The only ones who survive are the most ruthless. But for those like her, fate is cruel. She hoped for the young master to remember her words, even though he doesn't really relate to the experience at all. After his silence, he began to express his annoyance, how everyone here just mutters about strength all the time. Chrono doesn't see the value of this family's traditions, but learned that they've been in the same manner for decades. Still, the house is some big shot, to the point even the neighboring countries respect its might. This fact actually threw off our boy quite a bit, because the Gilgran family shouldn't have any more influence beyond a martial house. They don't really have anything to fight for or protect, yet they're adamant about preaching the values of strength. The more he learns, the more mysteries shroud the secrets of Gilgan and the others. His mate advised him to follow the traditions, because if Gilgran himself doesn't acknowledge him, he will be exiled. She just wants him to stay here for as long as he can. Back to the present, Hannah's undead is assigned to this ugly blonde, who demands to be given a different undead, especially when this one is case-specific and keeps dragging him down. However, the examiner claims that the decisions of their lord cannot be challenged, especially when the chains are also imbued with Gilgran's own magic, only coming off when the undead dies. Still, the brother finds it an annoyance that he has to deal with dead weight among the others. Interestingly, Gilgran pitches in and orders the kid to do whatever he wants, since the condition of the undead is irrelevant. He suggests the boy to leave the house if he's playing stubborn, causing the kid to immediately retract his words and champion a new confidence to succeed. Having heard enough, the Lord turns around and advises the kids to do their best. The remark swoons the kid like a little girl, but then Chrono steals the attention by addressing his father directly. He's got something to say, so Gilgran stops to hear him. The boy shares that he's undoubtedly going to pass the exam, but he wants the necromancer to keep him close to his side. Gilgran doesn't take his words too seriously and disappears from sight, explaining that it entirely depends on the kind of strength the boy will demonstrate. After he parted, Chrono is stuck with the annoying brother shouting at him for not giving respect to their lord. Our boy addresses him with a threatening tone, emphasizing that if he dares to let even a single scratch touch that specific undead, he'll make sure to kill him with his own hands. Saying so, he turns around to leave, confusing the blonde who has no idea what's going on. Instead, Bro takes it like a rivalry challenge of some kind to not give up. My guy is out here acting like a wannabe main character, while Chrono doesn't give two shits about the little shit. The Arbiter concludes their preparations and believes it's time for them to start the exam. The flame entrusted by their lord ignites and signals the start, engulfing each candidate whole. Instead of burning them, it actually acts as a means of transportation magic, causing them to vanish into thin air. The maid is worried, while Chrono finds himself in the forest teeming with magical beasts. He and his chopped companion are supposed to survive. Chrono can guess that the others are probably not far off from him either. The journey starts with him investigating the areas close by, but not a single sight of a candidate is spotted, making him question if there's some kind of proctor. Interestingly, a message scribbles into the ground, acting like a rule guide to survive for 3 days in the forest while protecting the undead. Remembering the family's philosophy, Chrono thinks it's a bit too twisted that he has to kill even his own brothers just to get on top of this exam. Through this exam, he can uncover the motivation for Gilgran's boundless thirst for power. Just then, a gorgeously titanic bird swoons over him. The magical beasts wasted no time showing right away, which gives him the edge not to go around finding them. The ugly bird targets him, while he fears nothing having died once already. Refusing to make the same mistakes with his second chance, Chrono dodges its attack, believing that this is directly going to be the fastest way for him to achieve his goal, vowing to pass this exam as Sieg. Leaping away from the undead, he effortlessly clips down the monster, causing its severed body parts to crash on the ground. The first fight is already over, and his experience as a sword saint is catching up to him. While he just finished beating one monster, another one, this time a lightning gorilla, lunges forth to crush him under its might. The exam's annoying already with this overwhelming persistence of the monsters, and having suffered 2 defeats against Gilgran, Bro is in the mood to cut down everything in his path in the name of warm-up. The fight is off-screened, though he wonders if this much is enough for him to pass, or if the proctors are checking on their scores. Suddenly, Chrono senses an attack from the side and immediately blocks it. The assailant is an arrogant brute, who praises Sieg for his reflexes despite possessing no mana. Chrono doesn't know what this guy's deal is. The creepy brother doesn't want to offer him a greeting, hoping to cut down any weaklings like Sieg in his path first. Chrono's expression is like, "Bitch please, come suck on D's nuts." All of these clowns keep championing the same "strength is everything" bullshit, and Chrono's fed up with it, intending to show them what real power looks like. Mana less this, mana less that, Chrono's about to teach them how to manage this L. The fight starts with this prick lunging to attack, thinking he'll win if he just starts sooner. He even plays dirty by throwing a sneak attack using his prosthetic arm. Our boy is impressed with this kid's audacity. The grenade-like bag explodes on him, but instead of dying, Chrono tanks the hit like nobody's business. In the next scene, my guy speed blitzes past the kid, cutting his ankles in the most gruesome way imaginable, rendering the punk on the ground. Back there, he'd created an afterimage to trick his opponent, and thanks to the humidity of the forest, the illusion had a deeper effect with Sieg's body. The kid has no idea what he's talking about. Meanwhile, Chrono remarks that in his time, he's seen plenty of dudes just like this clown. He could tell from their legs alone what kind of attack they were going to use. The same goes for their expression. Reading these tricksters like a book became his hobby. My guy shatters his prosthetic arm for daring to underestimate him even a little. On the ground whining for his life, the arrogant punk tries to aim for another sneak attack, only to get mogged a second time with Chrono stomping on his hands. He urges this idiot to stop flailing like a dumbass and actually learn something for once. Mini Gilgamesh internalizes that targeting the undead instead of one's opponent is more of a viable strategy. Punks like this guy rely on these kinds of tactics. The thought of Hannah being stuck with someone else still bothers him, and so bro chops down the arm of this punk's undead, severing the connection and disqualifying him immediately. The kid is going to be exiled. He curses his fate, roaring insults, while Chrono walks away, refusing to make even a single mistake from now on. Killing Gilgran takes top priority for him no matter the cause. Watching this battle, one of the proctors observes the outcome. He's shocked that this is the same young master who possessed no mana earlier. The kind of strength he's got now is on a different level. Let's cut to Hannah's side of things, who is stuck with the wimpy brother currently being chased down by a Giga-Chad ogre. This Olympic-level monster is actually an A rank, so it doesn't make things easy for him to survive. The monster takes notice of his presence behind the boulder and races to crush it immediately. The blonde narrowly escapes and starts bolting for his life, knowing he's about to get fucked if he makes a mistake. This fight is also being observed by the proctor, who knows it's the end. Gurika won't be able to handle this kind of enemy. The beast chases its prey in hot pursuit. Gurika is exhausting himself just to run fast. He values his own life more than the idea of being exiled, so he banks on the possibility of using the undead as a decoy. Then, Chrono's haunting words paralyze him in fear, making him refuse his earlier approach. He knows what's going on here, what Chrono meant by his words. Bro interprets it as some kind of rivalry invitation. Gurika is thrilled to take on the challenge, desiring only the best in front of his opponent. Instead of running, he stops dead in his tracks, confronting the monster directly. Well, that doesn't go too well because the monster goes, "Bitch, get the fudge out of my face," and slaps him like an insect. Even then, the blonde doesn't run away, but clashes directly against it, astonishing the proctor with his added assault. Regardless of his efforts, the blonde suffers severe injuries with each hit, and to top it off, the A-rank monster is charged with mana, towering over him before finishing him off. This is the end for him, except our boy has a different answer and lands like a superhero, ripping apart the monster's arm with a clean cut. Gurika and the beast didn't expect his arrival, while Chrono is glowing with a gorgeous mana color. His sudden entrance may seem like a savior call, but our boy is just annoyed that the blonde failed his mission. He's happy to have made it in time for Hannah's sake, emphasizing that if Gurika really wanted to use mana, then he should have recognized the gap in strength. By the way, the blonde genuinely thinks our boy came here to rescue his rival, saving him like a princess. Chrono orders him to start following his instructions if he wants to live after this battle. The monster roars while Gurika acts tough, stating that he was going to cut down the monster on his own anyway. Our boy is fixated on his dead wife, who seems to be weeping. A pang of pain guts him. His desire to save her is immeasurable. At this point, the blonde is weirded out by their weird relationship, wondering if Sieg over here is into MILFs and corpse mommies. That aside, Gilgran is chilling while observing the whole exam using his globe, refusing to give a damn about the ones who fall for being weak. His assistant thinks that at least one or two will survive the exam. His eyes glance at the A-rank monster, the magical beasts who shouldn't even harbor the forest. The necromancer smiles with joy, confirming that it's not supposed to be part of the exam. For him, this is just entertainment, even though it's going to end up as a very brutal trial for the batch. A rank and B-rank monsters are like night and day in their might. Not a single 10-year-old could best this creature, especially when this specific monster possesses a special ability. Speaking of that ability, the creature channels its mana and regrows its limb Piccolo style. It's an insanely fast regenerative ability. Gurika already gives up and wants to run away, disregarding Chrono's warnings. The monster views them as his immediate victims and pounces upon them, but Chrono blocks the attack narrowly, saving their lives. He deflects the creature, but his main gripe is with this idiot disobeying orders and being targeted for it. The A-rank monster exhibits a second ability, this time releasing powerful blasts from its spine, each of which are dodged by Chrono but very annoying to deal with. The spikes that are being shot are fired at an immense rate. The monster doesn't stop there. It concludes constant regeneration to speed up progress too. Accounting for its regeneration speed, Chrono lunges into motion, knowing that his father is involved in some way. First he chops down the arm, only for it to regrow once more. Things are looking bad because at this rate, the monster will regenerate endlessly. Unfortunately, our boy can't even release half of his Sword Saint techniques because his father as well as the proctors are watching him. In other words, his options are limited, and he can't bring out his best swordplay, merely dodging at best. His secret of reincarnation can't be exposed. Chrono fears that it will jeopardize Hannah as well as his main goal. he faces the A-rank magical beast, knowing that he simply can't contain this threat while his brain is wandering around. He calms himself down as the Sword Saint, while Gurika is astonished how this weakling loser managed to get so strong. Our boy is not in the mood to play with him and orders the blonde to shut up. Gripping his sword, this man releases waves of mana, all boasting different colors. The Proctor is shocked, and while it's true that he can't reveal his identity, Bro also doesn't want to die here, and intends to use Gluconian swordsmanship and destroy the monster in a single hit. Armed with that confidence, he lunges forth into battle with a final strike. While Chrono Gowis is planning to use the lesser-known Gluconian swordsmanship, Gilgran's butler is left completely startled at the mere sight of the monster before him. The butler could not have imagined even in his wildest dreams that the Lord would send an A-ranked modified magical beast for the exam itself. He understands that the Lord naturally has very high expectations from the children who carry his bloodline, but the truly worrying part is that they are still only 10-year-old kids who would normally have only recently stopped wetting their diapers. As he keeps drowning in worry, Chrono in Little Sieg's body suddenly leaps toward the monster with the clear intent of completely obliterating it. The A-ranked magical beast unleashes a powerful purplish flashing attack, but Chrono takes it head-on with his own strike overflowing with golden aura. As the two terrifying forces collide violently, Gulika, watching everything nearby, pees his pants from fear. Chrono quickly turns the battle in his favor as he cleanly slices off both of the monster's arms, severing them right at the shoulders while also leaving a deep cut across its left groin. However, he still fails to finish off the beast since most of his focus had gone into countering the earlier attack properly. Gulita grows even more frightened after noticing how the ground around them has been completely torn apart from the clash alone. As expected, the A-ranked magical beast regenerates all of those injuries almost instantly, and even grows back both severed limbs without any issue. Seeing this, Chrono Gowis starts becoming slightly nervous because his mana is draining rapidly. He understands that if the fight continues at this pace, he will not be able to hold out much longer. Just then, his worthless bragging brother Gulika points toward a dead man lying nearby who had been caught in the attacks earlier. He wonders aloud who the man could be. Chrono points out that he must have been the proctor assigned to watch over them closely, and the poor guy ended up dying the moment the beast attacked. Gulicha says that he never expected there to be a proctor watching them in the first place. As Chrono looks toward the dead man, his eyes suddenly fix onto a dragon pupil eyeball that has been torn apart, but is still emitting blue flames. He quickly figures out that the father of this body must have been using it to keep an eye on his offspring. Chrono becomes confident about this because he can no longer sense anyone observing him anymore. This immediately gives our boy an idea, and he finally feels relieved enough to freely use his Kiltia swordsmanship. He becomes serious because he wants to finish the battle before another proctor can be dispatched, and his secrets risk being exposed. Seeing golden black auras releasing from him, the worthless brother asks Sieg what exactly he is planning to do. Our boy ignores him completely, and immediately begins with the first blade style of the swordsmanship known as Hawkwind. The attack literally sends out shadow-like slashes and cuts the monster into several different pieces at once. The Kiltia swordsmanship possesses 7 famous forms, which are said to have been created by the Empire's very first sword saint. Apparently, these legendary sword styles originate from the fact that each one was originally used to slaughter one of 7 magical beasts. At this point in the magical world, Chrono Gowis is the only person capable of properly using all 7 of those forms. As the story shifts back to the battle, our boy leaps upward and uses the 4th blade style called the Snake Blade. However, he is forced to jump backward after once again failing to completely eliminate the beast. He grinds his teeth in frustration, realizing that this small and fragile body simply cannot fully keep up with his movements, and therefore he immediately charges forward again for another sword style. While leaping upward, he literally drags the undead creature tied to him high into the air. He then crashes downward using the 3rd blade style known as Rhino Horn. Meanwhile, Lord Gilgran is using his dark powers in an attempt to recover the crystal he had been using to monitor his children after it ended up shattered during the battle as well. The butler notices his smile and asks what happened, but the Lord says nothing in response. By this point, the magical beast has once again returned to its original state, after regenerating every limb and organ it had previously lost. Seeing it stand back up again, Sieg prepares himself for another attack. He has already landed multiple direct hits, yet none of them were enough, and now he grows worried once more because his mana is draining at a rapid pace. He then decides to use his ace up his sleeve and patiently waits for the perfect moment as the A-ranked magical beast charges directly toward him at full speed. Gulika quickly hides behind a rock as a precaution because he does not want to get involved and ends up dying like the proctor earlier. The moment the magical beast leaps close enough, our boy unleashes the 2nd blade style of the Kiltia swordsmanship known as the Fighting Dog's Cage. He traps the monster inside the cage and uses the technique to pinpoint the exact location of the beast's core hidden within its body. The instant he figures out where it is, he follows up with another clean slash, and this time splits the monster into 2 halves while simultaneously shattering its core and finally killing it for good. As the core breaks apart, he notices traces of tampering on it and immediately becomes angry after realizing that Gilgran must be responsible for it. Seeing all of this, the useless brother Gulika cannot believe what he has just witnessed with his own eyes. He has never seen anyone use swordsmanship in such a terrifying way before, and suddenly realizes how dangerous his own position has become. However, even as he refuses to lose to his brother, Sieg's body can no longer keep up with the overwhelming strain from using so much power and collapses onto the ground in pain. He struggles to hold himself together but eventually fails and passes out completely. The moment he loses consciousness, Gulika rushes toward him to check whether he is still alive. He sweats bullets while staring at the massive defeated monster lying nearby. Just then, memories begin resurfacing in his mind from when his mother used to remind him that he carried great responsibility as the son of the Lord's third wife. She had gently warned him that she would never tolerate the disgrace of him ending up exiled. She told him that he must do whatever it takes for that goal, even if it means murdering his own brothers. Remembering those words, the boy slowly smiles and his intentions become painfully obvious. As the scene shifts, Chronogawis finds himself standing in a grassy field while being back in his original body. He wonders where exactly he is and how he even ended up there in the first place. In front of him, he notices the undead created from the corpses of his former comrades. A strange sensation rises within him and he suddenly shouts toward them. Just then, he notices his beautiful wife Hannah standing behind them with a smile on her face. She begins weeping as she slowly walks closer toward him and gently holds his head in her hands. However, in the very next moment, she transforms back into the undead zombie she had become after being converted by Lord Gilgran, and blood starts dripping from her body onto the hero. Chrono suddenly wakes up from the nightmare and finds his maid Belle sitting beside him. Belle becomes overjoyed seeing him finally awake and quickly rushes over to ask how he is feeling. The boy slowly sits up while holding his aching head as Belle continues showing concern and tells him not to push himself too hard. Our boy quickly gets straight to the point and asks her exactly how long he has been unconscious. She tells him that it has already been 2 days since the exams ended, and then asks if he truly does not remember anything that happened. The memories from the exam day suddenly flood back into his mind, and he immediately becomes worried about his undead wife. He hurriedly asks the maid about the undead that were used during the exams, and finds out that everyone who passed has already returned to the estate together with their undead companions. Hearing this, Chrono quickly asks Belle whether the loser Gulika also returned safely. The maid confirms that Gulika and 3 others managed to come back as well. Hearing that, our hero finally relaxes slightly as he assumes the boy must have used his achievements to pass too. However, he does not really care about that as long as his undead Hannah is safe. Just then, the maid delivers the bad news that even though our boy returned alive, out of the 5 people who came back, he is the only one who failed the exam. Chrono refuses to believe what he just heard and immediately starts arguing, pointing out that he magnificently took down an enhanced magical beast by himself. After hearing his reaction, even Belle looks slightly startled herself. Meanwhile, the 4 kids are receiving proof of passing in the form of badges, and Gulika could not be more excited after pulling off some cheap trick behind the scenes. The butler arrives to congratulate all of them and admits how difficult this year's trial had been. He says he is happy to see that 4 candidates have passed, and he is certain that the Lord will also be pleased. The passing kids become even more excited and start bragging about how they wish they could have defeated even more beasts. After that, the butler awards all 4 of them 3 days of special leave, which they are instructed to use carefully for recovery and improving their skills. After leaving, the butler silently observes the boys more closely as he senses that something feels suspicious. He then mentions that he has heard Gulika defeated an A-ranked monster and asks him directly about the truth behind it. The shameless brother Gulika continues to maintain his confident act, while the green-haired Helios comments that he even managed to kill something that had already murdered their proctor. Helios then adds that he also heard Gulika save the mana-depleted Sieg and questions him with clear disbelief about how he managed to accomplish something like that. The worthless guy insists that he is not going to reveal his moves so easily since they are all rivals. After the green-haired one leaves, Gulika is left sweating bullets, still anxious about everything that actually happened. The story then shifts slightly back to the moment when Sieg had just passed out. After remembering what his evil mother told him, the worthless brother becomes greedy and cuts off Sieg's undead connection, while also severing the chain completely. He then fakes the entire story, claiming that he was the one who hunted down the A-rank beast and also saved Sieg himself. Later, when the butler meets the Lord, he expresses that he still cannot believe Gulika actually did all of that. He believes that when the proctor died and the crystal broke, the mana he sensed at that moment definitely belonged to Sieg, not Gulika. He asks the Lord if there is anything on his mind, but when the Lord replies with nothing, he immediately apologizes for the intrusion and steps back. Lord Gilgran simply smiles while thinking that there is something mixed among his children, and he feels excited to uncover what it is. Meanwhile, Gulika is walking around the fountain, extremely excited to receive praise from his mother after showing the badge he obtained. He knows that Sieg will be angry, but he decides to worry about that later. Just then, he hears his mother calling out to him and happily waves back in excitement. However, his excitement is abruptly cut off as our boy grabs his head and slams the brother away in anger, sending him crashing into his mother and then into the fountain water. Gulika cannot understand what just happened and struggles to get back up while asking what is going on. There he sees brother Sieg standing in front of him in bandages, asking about the story he has been telling everyone, clearly eager to hear it as well. Seeing his brother, Gulika instantly realizes how badly cooked he is and simply manages to utter a weak no. Gulika hesitates for a moment while Bell and his mother glance over, fully convinced Sieg has finally lost his mind. Our boy questions him once again and asks if he has anything to say for himself. Sieg then points out that he somehow failed the exam despite being the one who took down the A-rank magical beast. Gulika doesn't even attempt to defend himself, so Sieg presses harder and says that the loser stole all the credit for his achievement. He then warns the lousy brother that his next answer will decide whether he walks away alive or not, but the fool simply acts clueless and pretends he has no idea what Sieg talks about. The blondie insists Sieg made the whole thing up and claims there's no proof behind the accusation, but before he can finish speaking, our boy smashes his forehead straight into Gulika's face and sends him flying across the fountain like a skipping stone. While the blondie grabs his head in agony, Sieg walks over and declares that admitting the truth would have earned the fool nothing more than a beating. But since he chose to lie instead, death suddenly becomes a very real option. Gulika stammers in panic, but Bell quickly steps in and tells the young master to stop because killing a family member remains strictly forbidden within the estate grounds. Our boy clearly doesn't appreciate this brand new restriction, yet the blondie immediately starts yapping again and argues that since he holds the winning badge, a badgeless loser has no right to challenge him unless it happens through a formal duel. That instantly gives Sieg an idea, so our boy decides to settle everything properly and end the brat in one swift duel. The blondie immediately freaks out and desperately searches for an escape route, but Sieg closes the distance and tells him the duel would actually save time since he wouldn't have to sit through all his useless rambling anymore. Gulika weakly claims that he feels exhausted, but his mother cuts him off before he can continue and pushes him to accept the challenge instead. She proudly tells him to display his true strength and says this should pose no problem for the son who supposedly defeated an A-class monster without difficulty. Before the blondie can even explain himself, our boy grabs him by the collar and dunks him straight into the fountain. Gulika coughs and chokes while flailing around, but Sieg calmly asks if he plans to accept the duel now. He even points out how easy this should be for someone talented enough to pass the exam. Gulika still refuses and says he won't accept, so Sieg shoves him beneath the water again and starts waterboarding the idiot until the fool finally gives in. His mother encourages the poor fool to stand back up and fight again, while the other brothers watch from the side and begin to think that Sieg truly has gone insane this time around. Bell stares at the scene in horror and disbelief, yet deep down, our hero also understands that cornering some spoiled brat like this sits far beneath the dignity of the former sword saint of Kiltia. However, on the other hand, he still needs to get closer to Lord Gilgran in order to uncover the secret behind the necromancer's terrifying power and eventually defeat him for good. This remains the only path our hero believes he can take, because after reincarnation, there exists no guarantee that he will ever receive another opportunity like this again in his entire life. He asks Blondie one final time what his decision will be, and Gulika eventually gives in under the pressure. But right at that moment, a third presence suddenly interrupts them as a green-haired brother steps forward and declares that he has already seen enough. Both sides quietly stare at each other, and Sieg quickly notices that he never even sensed the guy approaching in the first place. He tries to remember the stranger's name, but then Gulika suddenly calls out to Helios instead. Our hero admits that he has no idea what the green-haired guy truly wants, though he also points out that he cannot sense any bloodlust from him at all. Sieg then asks whether Greenhead plans to play the role of mediator here, but the guy immediately replies that he is nowhere near soft-hearted enough for something like that, and instead says that he has a question to ask first. Helios asks Sieg whether he was the one responsible for taking down the A-rank beast inside the forest, and our boy pauses briefly before answering with another question by asking if he plans to pat him on the back for it if that turns out to be true. Helios immediately understands the meaning behind the response and admits that regardless of the truth, he never expected worthless Blondie over there to actually kill something that dangerous himself. He then proudly takes out his badge to display it and announces that he also passed the exam successfully, so he would gladly accept the hero's challenge anytime. A powerful green aura suddenly surrounds the guy and shocks both brothers on the spot. Helios repeats once again that Sieg should duel him because after that pathetic excuse of an exam, his combat skills apparently start to gather dust already. Our boy responds with a smirk while Gulika desperately tries to warn him that Helios stands on an entirely different level and that nobody can truly defeat him. However, our hero casually says that he does not care how strong the guy might be before he releases a blue aura of his own and declares that he also starts to grow bored after dealing with nothing but weaklings this whole time. Scared for her master, Belle tries to get them to stop, but our hero tells her to stay out of this. However, the maid insists, saying that they are making a grave mistake by not picking a proper place for the duel. Otherwise, it will not be recognized. Helios finally looks at the maid in acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Sieg gets irritated and wonders what the hell is wrong with fighting here. The green-haired kid agrees with the maid, saying that if they fought here, then both of them would have been kicked out. That annoys our boy even further, who immediately starts trash-talking Gilgran. Hearing that response, Helios gets enraged that anyone could speak of their father like that. He tells Sieg that he deserves to die 1,000,000 times over. Sometime later, everyone gathers at the blood-stained courtyard. The green-haired kid starts flexing his mana powers while our boy walks in like he owns the place. He stops to look at the emo skull decorations lying around, finding the idea of this being a formal arena a complete joke. Belle calls out to him, telling him not to overexert himself. She reveals that Helios is one of the most powerful fighters among the brothers, and all those who faced him died horrible deaths. Lord Gilgran recognized the green-haired kid's potential early on, and even allowed him to join intermediate unit missions while only being 8 years old. Instead of getting scared, Sieg smiles since he is happy to finally fight someone strong. The maid then interrupts him again, saying that Helios is known as the White Rose Reaper. The guy is so fast that his enemies do not even have time to scream before dying. She tells him to take care of himself, but he instead drops a corny line, wondering if Helios is going to dance around with a rose in his mouth. Just then, something massive drops out of the sky as giant spiky metal walls surround the entire courtyard. Our boy wonders what the hell is happening, but then smirks, stating that the butler really went all out for this duel. Getting impatient, he tells the green-haired boy to stop standing around and start already. Helios walks toward him, surrounded by green mana, and asks if Sieg is prepared to die. Our hero is not fazed one bit and instead says that if Helios loses, then he is going to start calling him the White Idiot from now on. That hits the mark perfectly as the green-haired kid promises to bury him 6 feet under. Meanwhile, on the benches, the other brothers are completely shocked that the weak Sieg is actually challenging Helios. There is some movement on the balcony as the big man himself finally makes an appearance. That completely shocks Helios alongside everyone else watching. The butler immediately tells everyone to shut their mouths while our boy thinks to himself that Gilgran finally decided to show up. Every single person instantly falls to their knees in respect except Sieg. However, that does not seem to bother his father at all, who calmly tells the fighters to do their best. On the inside, our hero tells himself that this duel is only a stepping stone to get closer to the person who murdered his wife and expose all the hidden lies surrounding him. The butler then requests the big man to signal the start of the match, who then raises his hand. A small glowing object suddenly appears in the middle of the arena, which turns out to be a wine glass. Helios stares at the glass with absolute concentration, while our boy confidently keeps smiling at him like he is not taking this seriously at all. The moment the glass shatters, the green-haired kid rushes in at full speed. Our hero barely manages to block the attack with his own blade. Even so, he continues taunting Helios that he was aiming for his neck from the very start, and asks if he is trying to impress Daddy Dear watching from above. However, the brother does not let up and attacks again without wasting even a single second. Our hero sends him sliding backward once more, but Helios instantly rushes back again, still aiming for the neck. Sieg asks if the guy has some weird kink for neck slitting or something as he blocks yet another attack. Meanwhile, the other brothers are absolutely stunned, wondering if that is really the weak Sieg they knew from before. At that moment, the arena suddenly starts glowing yellow, and Helios finally claps back that he simply wanted to shut that annoying mouth once and for all. The other brothers become even more shocked since the color yellow means the mana has reached at least level 4. The green-haired kid keeps relentlessly going on the offensive while Sieg can only dodge through the barrage of attacks. One strike finally manages to connect and sends our hero flying backward across the arena. However, he manages to stop himself just before getting impaled on the giant metal spikes. He thinks to himself that Helios is extremely skilled for someone his age and his mana control is excellent too. Then our boy suddenly smiles and starts powering up like Goku going Super Saiyan, which leaves everyone's jaws hanging on the floor. Our hero then asks his brother if that fighting style of his will still hold up against another mana level 4 user. With that, he challenges Helios once again, telling the White Rose trash to step it up already. All of the brothers stare at the scene in complete shock, because nobody expected Sieg to display this kind of overwhelming power so suddenly. The fierce battle continues to escalate while Lord Gilgran quietly watches everything unfold with a faint smirk resting across his face. Under his breath, the necromancer whispers for his sons to show him the true power they continue to hide deep underneath themselves. Helios remains completely baffled as he struggles to understand how the so-called mana-less brat suddenly reaches level 4 mana out of nowhere. He then questions whether our boy also received Lord Gilgran's blessing at some point. Those words immediately catch Sieg's attention because this becomes entirely new information to him, so he quickly asks what exactly that blessing even means in the first place. Our hero jokingly asks whether Helios had somebody praying on his behalf this whole time, but the green-haired brother simply mistakes the response for silence instead. He immediately assumes the worst possible conclusion and declares that he refuses to accept any reality where someone besides himself receives recognition from their father. Helios then adjusts his stance as the green aura swirls around his body, while his sword transforms into a twisted weapon covered in thorny vines. Our hero mocks the weapon by calling it a bunch of disgusting squirmy tentacles just to irritate the guy further, but Helios immediately slams his sword against the ground and causes the thorny vines to spread wildly toward our boy from every direction. Sieg barely manages to dodge the terrifying speed of the attack at the very last second. Bell quickly warns him to stay alert while he maneuvers across the endless tangles of vines that continue to surround him from all sides. He soon realizes that Helios carefully shapes his aura for precise pinpoint attacks, whereas his own aura leaks out recklessly all over the battlefield without control. Our hero understands that he burns through his aura far too quickly, like an amateur who leaves every faucet open at once, so a prolonged battle would place him at a major disadvantage. He also laments the fact that he cannot openly use his Kiltia sword techniques in front of all the Gilgrans, and finally realizes that he really should not approach this fight so lightly anymore. He dashes straight through the thorny vines before unleashing a technique that comes dangerously close to the legendary Kiltia sword arts. Sieg treats the move like a risky gamble, yet deep down he wonders whether he can recreate something similar to the cage of the fighting dog technique through instinct alone. Helios notices the hero's movements slow down slightly, and immediately attempts to take advantage of the opening with another attack, but our boy manages to block the strike at the final moment just in time. As the dust slowly settles across the battlefield, Lord Gilgran watches the clash with visible disappointment, which instantly causes Helios to panic internally. The green-haired brother loudly declares that he alone deserves the right to receive the Lord's blessing, and that he absolutely refuses to let somebody like Sieg steal that position away from him. Our boy responds by genuinely questioning how anyone could become this absurdly obsessed with a lunatic like Lord Gilgran in the first place. Helios roars and launches another vicious attack while declaring that this strike will mark the end of the hero once and for all. But Sieg suddenly erupts with an overwhelming wave of aura before effortlessly blocking the assault head-on. In that moment, he recalls how he always approached battles the exact same way back in his previous life as Chronogaius. No matter how difficult things became, he always forced his way through every obstacle, and tiny annoyances never mattered to him as long as he could land one decisive strike with absolute power behind it. A confident smile spreads across his face before he sends Helios flying backward through sheer force alone, while both the green-haired brother and the entire crowd stare in utter disbelief as the transformation finally completes itself. Lord Gilgran smiles with genuine interest after witnessing the final form of a warrior completely engulfed in blazing aura flames, while lightning bolts crackle wildly around Sieg and practically turn the guy into a fantasy world Super Saiyan at this point. The crowd continues to watch in stunned silence as Sieg calmly declares that he will personally prune every last thorn from Helios's pathetic vines before this battle finally comes to an end. Helios gets shocked by the sudden increase in strength in his opponent. Our boy charges straight in with his mana axe while the green-haired kid barely manages to dodge the attack as he stumbles backward. The shockwave from the swing keeps traveling forward and completely blows apart a huge section of the arena wall. The audience are still stuck in disbelief, wondering if this is truly the same powerless Sieg from before. Even Belle looks completely stunned and wonders what in the world happened to her young master. Helios looks at the destruction behind him and calls it an extremely poor technique. He asks if our hero copied his shape-shifting skill just now. Sieg immediately tells him not to get full of himself and calls him an overgrown weed instead. That instantly ticks the green-haired kid off, who says that they will see who is still laughing in the end. He then dashes forward at lightning speed, but our boy does not even look tense as he easily dodges attack after attack. That completely frustrates Helios that none of his hits are landing anymore. Our hero keeps taunting him, saying that just like weeds, his vines keep on spreading everywhere, which means he will have to cut them out from the roots. With that, he slams his axe straight into the ground, which forces Helios to retreat several steps backward. The guy is more offended by the horrible sword technique being used against him, but then suddenly goes quiet as he glances toward the balcony. He looks at his father and realizes that Gilgran is not even watching him anymore, and is instead focusing entirely on Sieg. That completely devastates the green-haired kid as fear slowly starts creeping into his heart. Helios breaks out in a cold sweat and wonders if he is going to be abandoned. His eyes begin watering while he repeatedly mutters that it cannot be happening. Tears slowly fall down his face as he declares that he is supposed to be the special child, that he is the only one Gilgran truly needs and the only person worthy enough to stand beside his father. Our hero suddenly gets serious as he notices the change in his opponent. Helios's eyes slowly turn pitch black as he declares that he alone will stay by his father's side forever. That catches Sieg by surprise as dark, ominous energy suddenly starts pouring out from Helios' body. Our hero wonders what the hell is happening while the green-haired kid keeps rambling about being the chosen one. Purple markings begin spreading across Helios's body, and Sieg finally realizes that this must be the blessing everyone kept talking about earlier. The green-haired kid screams out his father's name before suddenly letting out a loud roar. With a crazy smile stretching across his face, Helios declares that he will kill Sieg right here and now. He immediately launches himself forward and the two clash weapons once again. Our hero manages to block the strike, but this time he is genuinely struggling to hold his ground. He tells himself that this amount of power is completely abnormal for someone like Helios. First there was that mutated A-rank beast during the entrance exam, and now Gilgran is somehow modifying humans too. Meanwhile, the necromancer quietly smiles while watching his two children fight each other at full strength. Sieg calls Helios pathetic and taunts him that he is being treated like a complete fool. The green-haired kid instantly denies the accusation and insists that Gilgran treasures him more than anyone else. However, our hero tells him that it is not true at all and that Helios could have reached this level of strength entirely on his own. He had the talent to become a proper and honorable swordsman, but instead ruined everything by corrupting himself with fake power. That finally causes the green-haired kid to completely snap as he screams at Sieg to shut his mouth. However, our boy coldly reminds him that he is going to weed out the white rose along with every single thorn attached to it. With those words, Sieg suddenly slashes straight through Helios, leaving the entire arena in complete shock. Looking back at the defeated green-haired kid, our hero tells him to fix himself first, and then try again as he slowly sheathes his sword. The crowd struggles to believe what they just witnessed after the so-called manaless boy completely overwhelms the prodigy Helios in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Lord Gilgran receives a visit from the butler, who respectfully praises the young lord for his remarkable performance and service. Lord Gilgran turns to glance towards Sieg one final time, while our hero quietly thinks to himself that the next time they meet, he will definitely cut down the old necromancer for good. The lord eventually walks away from the Colosseum without another word, while our boy slowly approaches the body of his fallen brother instead. He bends down beside Helios and removes the badge of passing from him as proof of his own worthiness and victory. Sieg walks away while Helios remains collapsed on the floor and continues to bleed heavily. The defeated brother weakly whispers the name of his father, while our hero turns back for a moment and tells him to live his own life instead of chasing someone else's shadow forever. Just then, the butler approaches the victor once again and formally congratulates him for his induction into the lower ranks, before adding that he will personally explain all the details regarding his future duties later on. The butler advises him to focus on recovery for now, but our hero casually tells the old man to mind his own business instead. However, right after that response, another wave of excruciating pain suddenly crashes through his body once again. Sieg quickly realizes that there truly exists no way to avoid the backlash caused by excessive mana consumption, while the butler quietly watches him with sharp interest from the side. Our boy eventually loses strength and collapses forward, but Belle quickly catches him in her arms with visible pride and warmly welcomes him back before the young master finally passes out completely. 3 days after the duel, during a gloomy rainy afternoon, Sieg appears inside the massive library while searching through countless books and ancient manuscripts, in hopes of uncovering some clue regarding the secret behind Lord Gilgran's terrifying power. He accepts that if he truly wishes to expose the mystery surrounding the necromancer, then he will first need to sharpen his own fangs properly. Although he finally reaches the starting line after all this time, he still has absolutely no idea where he should take the first step from here. As our hero continues to search through the archives, a group of troublemakers suddenly approaches him and mocks him for sitting alone and studying like some lonely nerd. Sieg asks them what exactly they want from him, so the guys explain that they heard he somehow learned mana and defeated Helios through nothing but pure luck. One of them smugly adds that they simply came to see what the famous little miracle boy actually looks like in person, so our hero lets out a tired sigh and comments that a 3-against-1 fight sounds pretty unfair, while also wondering why this family continues to produce so many complete dimwits. The thug bursts into laughter and proudly declares that if they manage to defeat the guy who beat Helios, their own reputation will rise instantly. The group releases their aura and shouts for Sieg to die, but before any of them can even step forward properly, our boy suddenly dashes toward them in his normal state. One brutal gut punch lands instantly and twists the thug's face so hard that the poor guy probably starts to see his ancestors filing a complaint in real time. A single strike leaves all of them gasping desperately for air while foam spills from their mouths. Yet even in that miserable state, they still admit that the guy really is absurdly strong. Sieg simply complains that they are way too weak for his standards and says he has no time to waste on this kind of nonsense before mentally preparing himself for the real battle that still awaits ahead. He tells the idiots to clean up the mess they caused and casually adds that he might forgive them if they actually manage to do it properly. Just then, Belle suddenly storms into the library and announces that she has been searching everywhere for the young master. Sieg immediately tries to dismiss her out of habit before awkwardly apologizing a second later, after which Belle explains that Lord Gilgran has officially summoned him because the Lord wishes to deliver a decree personally. She urges him to head toward the Lord's chambers immediately, which instantly catches our hero's full attention. Sieg thinks that he has already waited long enough for a chance like this, so he confidently walks toward Lord Gilgran's chambers in hopes of finally getting closer to the old necromancer himself. Once there, he discovers Gulika alongside several other brothers, who immediately begin teasing him for arriving late. They mockingly claim that he only entered the lower ranks through cheating, though our hero does not even bother responding to the childish accusations. The brothers complain about him ignoring them, but Sieg casually walks right past all three of them until the third brother suddenly catches his attention for some reason. He notices that something feels strangely different about the guy, but before he can think further, the butler calls out his name and praises him for the excellent performance he displayed during the duel the other day. Without wasting another second, the butler announces that he now carries a direct order from Lord Gilgran himself, which Sieg casually decides to hear out for the moment. The decree orders him to travel 20 Orions northward and defend the Historia ruins for the next 6 months. Sieg immediately pushes back against the decision and questions why, after finally reaching the lower ranks, he still does not receive the chance to directly serve by his father's side. The butler calmly interrupts and explains that although such a privilege may eventually happen, this mission still remains extremely important regardless. The hero's blood immediately begins to boil with rage because to him, this mission sounds no different from outright exile toward the middle of nowhere. He starts to think that all of his hard work will go completely to waste if he leaves now, but then the butler suddenly adds that a certain ritual will take place at the Historia ruins after the 6-month period ends. According to him, the ritual exists for the sole purpose of making Lord Gilgran's already terrifying power even more absolute and unbreakable than before. That information instantly shakes our hero to the core, so the butler continues by explaining that the Lord himself will not appear on the battlefield for at least 6 entire months. During that time, Sieg receives the responsibility of subjugating the magical beasts around the area and eliminating every possible threat before the ritual begins. Before our hero can fully react, the butler presents another condition from Lord Gilgran and declares that if Sieg succeeds with this mission, he will receive promotion into a much higher rank closer to the Lord himself. Sieg quietly thinks everything over for a moment, while the butler informs him that the intermediate unit already arrived at the ruins ahead of schedule, meaning he must assist them immediately after departure. After carefully considering the situation and realizing that the terms do not interfere with his true mission, our hero finally reaches a decision and accepts the assignment without further resistance. Meanwhile, the scene then shifts to a carriage making its way through the frozen icelands. The rider stops the horses and tells his passengers that this is the farthest he can go. Belle jumps out of the carriage and instantly gets excited by how freezing the temperature is. Sieg adjusts his coat and asks why the hell the maid had to come with him all the way here. However, she gets offended and says that it is her duty as a maid to serve her master till the very end. The carriage rider then takes his leave and lets the two know that the Historia ruins are just up ahead. He warns them to stay careful while Belle happily thanks him for the ride. Looking ahead at the snowy landscape, she immediately starts fangirling over the snow since this is the first time she has ever seen it in real life. The maid suddenly gets worried that her breath is turning into smoke and wonders if she caught some weird disease. Meanwhile, Sieg is more focused on the ruins as he stares at the ominous buildings standing in the distance like some abandoned villain headquarters. Belle tells him that they should start moving now while the carriage retreats back the way it came. After that, the two continue making their way through the thick layers of snow with Sieg leading the path ahead. Belle eventually stops for a moment just to catch her breath. Our hero asks if she is alright and starts teasing her, wondering what happened to all that enthusiasm from earlier. She admits that she did not expect walking through snow to be this difficult. However, Sieg tells her to control her breathing properly, otherwise her lungs will get damaged from the cold. Spotting a cave ahead, our boy decides to call it a day and rest there for the night. Sometime later, Belle sits in front of a big fire thawing herself out like some frozen chicken pulled straight from a freezer. Our hero warns her that Mother Nature is absolutely ruthless, so she should never let her guard down out here. The maid suddenly gets suspicious and points out that this should technically be Sieg's first time in the snow too. He plays along that it is while, on the inside, he recalls that this is actually his 12th time. He then starts searching through Belle's bags and gets surprised after realizing that they are stuffed almost entirely with his clothes. Belle immediately gets flustered, but Sieg shuts her down before she can explain anything by tossing one of his jackets at her face. He reassures her that he is perfectly fine, and instead tells her to stay warm and get some sleep since they will start walking again early in the morning. Belle starts giggling like a little girl and hugs the jacket close to her face. Meanwhile, far away in the distance, several unknown hooded figures quietly observe our hero from the shadows. The maid remains fast asleep inside her sleeping bag, while Sieg silently keeps watch near the cave entrance. Belle does not know it yet, but this frozen wasteland is filled with dangerous magical beasts, along with the infamous Gruzik clan. The clan consists entirely of ruthless fighters who consider this icy hellscape their home. They are usually involved in illegal weapon trading alongside the usual kidnapping and trafficking business. Their savage reputation made them infamous throughout the underworld, and Sieg never forgot the horrifying masks those lunatics always wore. He recalls that his current mission was supposedly to eliminate dangerous beasts and other hostile elements in the region. Suddenly, it finally clicks in his head what that mission description truly meant. Coming back to reality, our hero instantly becomes alert after noticing movement in the distance. He notices a shiny object flashing in the distance and barely dodges the arrow that would have taken his head out. Studying it carefully, he realizes that it is a mana-infused arrow which immediately rules out magical beasts as the attackers. Wrapping his cloak tightly around himself, he rushes outside just as more arrows begin raining toward him. Sieg uses the cloak like a shield while the figures in the distance slowly start closing in around the cave. He quickly realizes that this group consists of experienced fighters, judging by how coordinated their attacks are. However, none of that phases him in the slightest as he grabs his sword and charges straight toward them. Using his lightning ability, our boy tears through the attackers one after another before finally stopping just short of the last survivor. The hooded guy starts sweating while staring at the sword pointed directly at his throat. He instantly surrenders, but Sieg still refuses to lower his guard. Our hero guesses that they are not members of the Gruzik clan since none of them are wearing those creepy masks, and immediately demands an explanation. The terrified guy nervously smiles before slowly revealing the emblem on his chest. He quickly explains that he is actually from the same unit as Sieg, and claims that this whole thing was just some friendly hazing for the new recruit. That catches our boy off guard. Just then, a voice suddenly calls out from behind him, impressed that the new guy is not a completely useless twig. The voice belongs to a half-naked, blue-haired woman riding a black horse. She apologizes for the rough welcome from her juniors, and introduces herself as Captain Perrier, Sieg's new captain and owner. Hearing the half-naked woman insult him like that, he already dislikes her from the start. The lady captain mocks him again, and orders him to remember that his rightful place is down in the gutter. When he calls her cocky, she scoffs at the fact her precious little brother lost to such a bum. Sieg is surprised when she reveals she is the older sister of Helios. He tries to taunt her about coming for revenge, but the lady captain makes it clear she does not give a flying duck that her baby brother lost. She follows the Gilgran family motto that power is justice and weakness is a sin. After the heated exchange, they head over to pick Belle up. The moment his maid sees two weirdos crouched over her while she sleeps, she nearly logs out. Lady Perrier's lackey informs her that the idiot actually brought his maid along on a mission. My guy swears she forced her way into coming, while Belle is confused about why Lady Perrier is here in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, the two accompany her back toward the Historia ruins. Along the way, Belle asks what happened while she was asleep, so he explains that this mid-rank captain was apparently searching for him to drag him to the ruins. Curious, Belle asks the stripper if she is not freezing while barely wearing any clothes. Right then, both the captain and Sieg suddenly sense something approaching. Out of nowhere, the ground beneath them cracks apart and splits the group into two sides. Out emerges a massive dark-scaled serpent with jaws huge enough to swallow the entire Gilgran family in one bite. Belle's jaw drops to the floor while our boy instantly switches into fight mode. Interested in seeing the abilities of the guy who humiliated her brother, the lady captain smugly tells him to show what he can do. Not amused, he asks why the hell he should listen to some half-dressed harlot. She reminds him she is his superior in the unit, and decides whether he stays or gets kicked out. Our protagonist is left with no choice but to fight as the dark-scaled snake slithers toward them. He tells her to keep her eyeballs open because he is about to put on a show. The dark-scaled serpent turns toward him again and attacks from below with its tail aimed straight at him. Sieg struggles to find an opening. It also does not help that the lady captain keeps taunting him, calling him all bark and no bite. Annoyed by her non-stop yapping, he yells at her to sit back and learn something. Standing right in front of the serpent, he draws his sword and attacks it head-on. With a smooth maneuver, his slash cuts across the creature's massive body, and he grins proudly at what looks like an easy win. However, that smile vanishes when he realizes he did not even leave a scratch on the scales. The lady captain informs him that the dark scale serpent's armor is tougher than titanium. His lousy little sword swings are nowhere near strong enough to cut through it properly. So now she wants to see what the loudmouth weakling plans to do next. After thanking her for the completely useless lecture, our boy changes his strategy. With mana enhancing both his body and sword, he charges at the steroid-abusing snake once again. The lady captain goes speechless in shock when she sees how densely he can concentrate his mana. Only advanced swordsmen can compress it that much for massive power with minimal consumption. She smirks after realizing he was not handed the special exception title for no reason. Within moments, Sieg precisely slices multiple spots where the serpent's scales are thinnest. Even then, he still lacks the raw power needed to deal fatal damage and subdue it. She watches him stay calm while taunting the half-blinded serpent and baiting it directly toward her position. Both impressed and irritated by his shameless strategy, she prepares herself to fight. The two leap aside as the serpent charges forward, and Lady Perrier drives her spear deep into its body. With a cheeky grin, our boy thanks her for the convenient assist. After that, he releases his aura and transforms his sword into an axe to land the finishing blow. The poor serpent lets out a dying scream as his axe brutally decapitates its thick-scaled body like butter under a red knife. After the battle, Belle rushes toward him, worried about whether he is hurt. He tells her the only casualty was his coat, so it is a good thing she brought extra clothes with her. On the other hand, Lady Perrier reluctantly admits he is not totally useless after all. Our boy turns to her with a smug grin and tells the tsundere to just admit she is blown away by his smooth skills. The captain, too poor to buy clothes, replies that he should quietly follow along and meet her squad. She fully plans to work him like an underpaid sweatshop worker. Our sword saint flashes back to an old memory. Hannah noticed he was not acting like his usual self and asked what was bothering him. Bro admitted he is sad that his breath is not making fluffy clouds in the cold air. He also mentions it is strange that it's still freezing cold even after the blizzard stopped. Hannah pointed out the obvious fact that they were standing on the tallest mountain on the continent. She proudly flexed her knowledge, explaining that the air high up in the mountains is too dry for his breath to form mist. Her knowledge impressed his unga-bunga caveman brain, so he complimented her. But she humbly replied that she reads a lot of books. His ego is shattered when she says those books were literally sitting inside his study. Refusing to let his ego take fatal damage, Bro claimed he is the combat expert, so he left all the nerdy stuff to her. His wife simply smiled and replied that knowledge can sometimes be sharper than any sword. The last thing in his memory is her warm and loving smile. Back in the present, everyone in the squad is quieter than before. Belle finds it strange and asks if there is a reason for the gloomy silence. He turns toward her and bluntly reminds her they are not exactly out there enjoying a picnic out in the tundra. Belle points out that the silence makes time feel slower. She also feels like it's colder than yesterday, and her breath is finally making fluffy clouds. Remembering Hannah's explanation, he educates her that the colder air is causing heat to escape faster into the sky. That still does not mean time itself slows down in this deadly biome. Belle ends up both fascinated and terrified by the snowy environment. Suddenly, she asks when he became so weirdly knowledgeable about Earth stuff. While he relives his memories, Sieg accidentally blurts out Hannah's name and says she used to teach him about these things. When Belle asks who Hannah is, he realizes he goofed up. Tired of Belle's yap session, Lady Perrier cuts in and tells her to discuss something actually useful instead. She asks Belle what she knows about the Gruzit clan, and Belle explains that she heard they are a ruthless underground syndicate running illegal operations across every nation. The captain reveals these snowy mountains were the Gruzit clan's turf long ago, so there is a high chance they are being watched even as they speak. Belle starts trembling at the thought since she also heard rumors that the clan traffics women and children. Confident in herself, the lady captain believes they will not get targeted. You see, the clan is currently after a secret treasure hidden within the Snake River, the Chronogaius sword. Hearing that name immediately sets off alarm bells inside Sieg's head. The twin sword to the Sword Saint's blade was rumored to have been lost in the river during the Great War. Belle finds the name strangely familiar, so the lady captain confirms it belonged to the Sword Saint their Lord Gilgran defeated. Their mighty lord crossed both the Sword Saint of the Kiltia Empire and the Sage of the Magic Kingdom off his kill list during the war. She admits she would love to get her grubby little hands on a treasure famous enough to end up in history books if they manage to find it. That is exactly why she won't let the Gruzit clan snatch it first. Hearing that makes Sieg so irritated that his clenched fist punches straight through his water bag. The captain casually comments that she would love to see how strong that Sword Saint really was with her own eyes. Sir Bald Knight reveals they have already spent an entire year searching for the legendary weapon. Unfortunately, the only clue they ever found was a cryptic riddle about its location. Because of that, the guy says he would bet his hairy mustache the fairy tale blade is not here. Sieg, however, thinks very differently. He finally realizes the strange feeling following him throughout the journey was connected to the twin of his original sword. He already improved his mana control and movements inside this new body. The only thing still holding him back now is a weapon capable of handling his output properly. Deep down, he swears he will never let anyone else lay their grubby hands on that sword if they actually find it. Right then, the lady captain's horse suddenly stops in its tracks. Everyone's eyes lock onto the strange figure standing alone in the middle of nowhere. After taking a closer look, Lady Perrier immediately recognizes who the masked figure is. Belle panics that it is the monster who slapped her grandma. Our young master orders her to relax. It seems the Gruzek clan came personally to give them a warm welcome. Not intimidated to face his whole squad, the masked warrior grins widely. Within seconds, more and more masked fighters pop up from behind him. After they completely surround the squad, Belle flips out thinking they are doomed. With a piercing gaze hidden behind his mask, the warrior leader orders our boy to state his name. Sieg is genuinely amused to see the bugs act like they own the mountain. In a loud and dominating voice, he proudly declares his name is Sieg Proud. Cocky as ever, he orders their leader to spit out everything he knows about the Sword Saint's greatsword. Otherwise, he is next on the chopping block. Not impressed by his attitude, the warrior scans him with his sharp glare. Then out of nowhere, he does a 180 and casually walks off. Our boy yells that running away is cheating, but the warrior books it without a care. Lady Perrier tells him to quit wasting his breath on nobodies. Her attention is locked onto the real threats who already look ready to tear them apart. The Gruzek are out for blood, and they clearly have no intention of leaving survivors. In seconds, they surround the entire group without leaving a single opening to escape through. Seeing that level of tactical coordination, Sieg is genuinely impressed. Belle nervously wonders if her young master will really make it out alive this time. But the bald knight tells her to stay back and worry about herself first. The moment their lady captain orders her squad to show them what they have got, the men instantly get fired up. Watching her wrapped in a blazing red aura, Sieg realizes she truly lives up to the title of intermediate rank captain. Right after that, a brutal fight to the death explodes across the battlefield. One of the Gruzek archers tries to sneak an arrow toward the captain, but the woman casually swats it away with her sword like she is smacking a mosquito. Watching her bulldoze through everything they throw at her, even the Gruzek start wondering if she is human. Our boy studies her closely during the battle and realizes her mana control is leagues above Helios. Beating her would definitely not be easy, unless he already knew her fighting style beforehand. The bald knight laughs proudly while praising the captain. Her performance never fails to live up to her reputation as the spear bullet princess of war. The captain's simp squad starts cheering for her. Their cheering only pumps her up even more and turns her into a bigger threat. Their simping distracts Sieg so bad that he misses a Gruzek warrior attacking him. Before the guy can land the hit, the captain caves the poor sucker's skull in with a brutal kick from her boots. Weirdos out there probably jealous of that guy right now. Standing on top of the Gruzek warrior, she orders the others to stop gawking and move their lazy behinds. Otherwise, she threatens to shove her spear where the sun don't shine and light it on fire. While some guys would be thrilled, Sieg wants no part of it and decides it is time to show off. He concentrates his mana into a thick cloak around his body, leaving Perrier surprised that he can use the same skill as her. His agility becomes so insane that a simple jump launches him forward like a bullet. The momentum behind his attack sends the poor Gruzek warrior flying like a bowling pin. What the lady captain finds even more impressive is the perfect control and pinpoint accuracy behind it. After showing off her own technique right in front of her, Sieg smugly says he likes it, so he plans to borrow it for a while. The bald knight starts respecting him, while the other soldiers nearly lose their minds seeing another guy copy the captain's signature move after one glance. Just as the captain starts getting irritated over it, her men suddenly panic. Another huge squad of at least 30 warriors rushes toward them at full speed, confirming the earlier group was only a scout team. Realizing things are turning ugly, our boy recommends a tactical retreat, but the muscle-brained captain calls him soft because their side has not lost a single soldier yet. He reminds Birdbrain that their mission was never to fight the Gruzek. In the first place, he only came here to track down a lead on his greatsword. Still hoping his words somehow reach her skull thicker than her, he warns they will throw away lives for nothing. In response, the captain gives him a cold stare and accuses him of hiding his full potential. Caught off guard by the sudden accusation, he goes speechless. Perrier continues by explaining that copying her technique requires expert-level mana control. Even after watching her use it hundreds of times, not even her best men could imitate it properly. Yet somehow Sieg pulled it off on the first try. His mana control and movements are also much more efficient for his age. So she mocks him by saying his survival instincts are surprisingly dull for someone with that much skill. Sieg gets irritated by her painfully accurate analysis, but now is not the time to argue. Suddenly, the captain turns serious and says she will deal with him later. For now, he can sit back and enjoy the show as she annihilates the enemy. Confused by what she means, he stares dumbfounded as a monstrous aura far stronger than before explodes from her. Sir Bald Knight panics that she is going to go even further beyond. Still trying to process what is happening, Sieg asks the madwoman what insane move she is about to use. But Sir Bald Knight tells the two they need to get the hell out of there immediately. With that, Lady Perrier leaps high into the sky and crashes straight downward. All of the Gruzek warriors lose their minds as she descends on them like a meteor ready to crush them against the ice. For a brief moment, Sieg is impressed by her absurd power, but he notices the ice under his foot suddenly cracks. It is at this moment he realized she messed up. He yells at the lady to stop because the ground under them is nothing but thin ice. Unfortunately, the captain cannot hear him over her epic ultimate called Thunderspear Hammer. The Gruzik warriors get blasted away like ragdolls. Meanwhile, Lady Perrier grins proudly, showing off the terrifying strength of the Proud family. Suddenly, her expression changes as the earth below starts violently shaking. Our boy screams that the ground under them is about to collapse. Right as his warning reaches her ears, a gigantic fissure rips through the frozen ground beneath everyone. The falling captain assumes it is just an earthquake, but Sieg instantly realizes this is no ordinary tremor. It is a massive chasm opening beneath them. Sir Bald Knight holds Belle back right before she runs after her master. With nothing nearby to grab onto, the two plunge straight into the giant ice crack. Confused and horrified, everyone above wonders what will happen to the captain and the young master after falling from such a ridiculous height. Even Gojo would get fried if he dropped down a pit so deep they cannot even see the bottom. Still falling through the massive icy crack, our boy calls Perrier brainless. Her bust size is higher than her IQ if she did not think this would happen after using a skill that destructive. The feral captain fires back that it was the best possible choice. The two continue roasting each other until they finally notice the bottom is near. Sieg senses a strange stream of light flowing toward the huge cavern. Captain Perrier tells our boy to stop getting distracted by the shiny light and focus on landing unless he wants to die from fall damage. So the two unleash their maximum strength against the bottom of the fissure to break their momentum. After the explosive landing succeeds, Sieg says he finally understands her personality better and claims she is even more manly than her brother. Captain Perrier instantly replies that she is not the problem. Men these days just whine too much. Putting that aside, the two have no clue how to climb back out of the icy crack, so she suggests they simply pick a direction and keep moving. Best case scenario, they might find a path leading toward the base of the mountain. Already tired of walking around with him, she says they should split up and signal each other if either of them finds something useful. Sieg agrees, but he warns the woman to calm down and try not to cause another avalanche with her signals. After that, he explores the icy caverns filled with strange architecture. The farther he goes, the more he notices something weird. The ice covering the walls is far too tough to be normal ice. It feels more like obsidian since he cannot even scratch it without enchanting his sword and mana. He also finds it strange that the twisting river seems to stretch on forever. Captain Perrier's words about the treasure hidden in the river being the Sword Saint's greatsword flash through his mind. Right as he thinks about the Gruzik clan's objective, an icy blade suddenly appears close to his neck. Unable to sense the Gruzik warrior until the very last second, he praises the clan's warriors who never fail to impress him with their absurd skills. Surprised to hear a brat say that, the man demands his identity. Meanwhile, Sieg quickly recognizes the warrior's Sherlock-level deduction skills. He was part of the group he faced earlier. Our boy introduces himself as Sieg Proud and boldly demands the Gruzik hand over the information he wants. Looking offended by his mogging, the warrior swings his blade even closer to Sieg's throat. His water-style swordsmanship leaves behind only a chilling mist around him. The Gruzik warrior coldly informs him that his people despise the filthy Proud bloodline. They were responsible for trampling the honor of his clan. Not bothered by the tiny cut on his cheek, Sieg asks what honor they even have left after the guy ran off the moment his buddies got destroyed. Irritated by the smug attitude, the warrior makes it clear he hates that arrogant look in Sieg's eyes. He assumes the Gilgran bloodline is also searching for the legendary sword. That means even the Sword Saint's weapon is too dangerous to leave lying around. Completely confused, Sieg asks what nonsense the guy is rambling about now. The warrior runs out of patience and assumes he is just playing dumb. He declares that a little acting will not stop the Gruzik clan from achieving their goal. Locking eyes with him, the warrior swears he will use the Sword Saint's blade to slaughter Gilgran and wipe out his entire bloodline. A powerful aura bursts around him as he prepares to fight. Our boy is slightly surprised the lunatic wants to throw hands underground, where the whole cavern could collapse at any second. On top of that, it seems the Gruzik genuinely believe the great sword carries some broken power capable of taking down Gilgran. Since even the Gruzik clan believes it, he is now confident the sword has some advantage over Gilgran's mysterious power. He originally planned to get a stronger weapon someday, but now he absolutely has to reclaim his trusty blade. Without wasting more words, the two charge straight at each other. The impact of their swords colliding creates a massive crater. At first, the way both fighters get blasted backward makes it seem like they are evenly matched. But the moment Sieg clashes with him again, he instantly realizes this guy is leagues above the other Gruzik warriors he fought before. A huge reason for that is the man's absurd skill with his sword. At the same time, Sieg's stance and power make the Gruzik warrior realize he is not some ordinary brat from the Proud family either. Just as the fight is about to get serious, a giant fissure suddenly splits the ground apart and ruins the showdown. While the warrior is confused about the sudden earthquake, our boy reflexively thinks it is that muscle brain woman sending another ridiculously loud signal. Right after that, a three-headed dragon bursts out from beneath the icy ground. The Gruzik warrior immediately recognizes it and calls it an ancient magical beast. Since the guy clearly knows more about the lizard than him, Sieg suggests they team up before continuing their duel. After all, they cannot exactly ignore Jumbo Lizard over here when it could collapse the entire cavern at any moment. The Gruzik warrior understands he has no choice and reluctantly agrees. Still, he gives our boy a friendly little warning that the moment this monster goes down, he is next.